Hey guys, I'm back. I know it's been forever and a day since my last video, and I truly do apologize for that, but there's something I really feel I need to talk about, because in case you haven't heard, there's a new Negima game, or rather a new Negima game. Okay, before we get started, let's actually address that. As a lot of you have probably noticed, the manga series that I talk about on this channel is called Mahou Sensei Negima, after the main character, Negi Springfield. But I obviously don't pronounce it that way. I always say Mahou Sensei Negima and Neji Springfield, which is incorrect, as many of you have told me. Just so we're clear, I know how it's supposed to be pronounced, and that my pronunciation is wrong. I started with the manga, so I just pronounced everything the way I thought it sounded. Even after I saw the anime and heard the hard G pronunciation, I just ignored it because I was already so used to saying G, and I just thought it sounded cooler. Honestly, I still do. I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. After all, there are still people out there who call it Hunter x Hunter, so I wasn't planning on changing the way I say it based on one or two comments. But then a couple of things happened. First, I kept getting these comments, which is fair. Please keep leaving comments. I want to hear from you. But then I got one comment saying that this was apparently the only thing wrong with my content. And that really made me raise an eyebrow. Seriously? That's the only problem? Not my terrible audio quality, my mediocre editing, or the eons between uploads? Don't get me wrong, I am extremely grateful for all your kind words. I don't want to give the impression that I'm not. But there's definitely a lot wrong with my content. But if you guys are really willing to overlook my many flaws, and all you're asking in return is to change the way I pronounce two words, that's a pretty small price to pay. It would be one thing if these comments were rude or insulting, but you've been nothing but polite, just very nicely trying to inform and educate me, which is something I always want to encourage. So, this is me officially stating that from now on, I will be calling this series Negima, and the main character Negi, even though it sounds so weird to me. I'm sure I'll still slip up every now and then, because I've been using the soft G pronunciation for 15 years now, but I promise to make an effort. Consider it an apology for ignoring these comments for so long. I really am sorry. But now let's actually get into today's topic, because like I said, there's a new Negima game. Sorry, Negima. I told you I'd mess up. Negima. There's a new Negima game. And that's pretty exciting news. I mean, have we ever gotten a Negima video game before? Actually, yes. Several, in fact. According to the Negima wiki, there are 14, which I think is insane. If you asked me before I started working on this video, I would have said like 2, maybe 3. But yeah, apparently Negima has a significant history in gaming. Unfortunately, most of them are not available outside of Japan, which is a shame, because some of them seem really cool. This one has you fight through all the levels of Library Island while rescuing the girls. I'd play that right now if I could. But it's really hard to even find that much information about these games, let alone play them. That's why this new game is such a big deal. It's called Mahora Panic, and you can play it for free in your browser right now. Before you get too excited though, it is a gacha game, which are fairly controversial. For those who don't know, a gacha game is just a video game that charges real money for in-game purchases, usually different characters or outfits. This practice is often called predatory or outright evil because of how addictive and expensive it is, especially if the game is supposed to be free. I am nowhere close to an expert on this because I don't really play gacha games. I played Genshin Impact for like 5 minutes, and as of this recording, I just started playing Cookie Run Kingdom, but I don't really have much of an opinion on them. I'm sure there are evil gacha games out there, but I'm not here to talk about those. I've played Mahora Panic, and haven't spent a dime on it yet, so it is totally optional. I'm not trying to sell you on gacha games or anything. If you really hate the industry with a burning passion, this probably isn't going to sway you at all. But at the same time, I don't think it'll get you hopelessly addicted or drain your bank account either. But enough talking around it. How's the game itself? Well, let's start with the good stuff. The artwork. It is absolutely gorgeous. Seriously, I am not exaggerating when I say this is the best Negima has looked since the manga. There are a few minor issues here and there, like Negi doesn't have black hair under his red hair, and Asuna is missing her heterochromia. But other than that, this is absolutely amazing. The first anime was really flat and washed out. The second anime had much better visuals, but there were a lot of art style and design differences from the manga. Even the Another World OVA, which was by far the best looking anime, had to sacrifice a little bit of detail to animate it that fluidly. But these pictures are extremely detailed and the colors pop right off the screen. I'm not an artist, so I can't really explain what makes it so good, but this art is just as good as the manga. Even in the manga, it took a while for them to develop their iconic looks. If you go back to the first few chapters, they looked a little wonky compared to the later ones. But this game rivals the manga art at its best. Alright, but how's the gameplay? Well, there's a reason I want to talk about the art first. Because the gameplay is, simply put, not as good. When you start the game, you'll be overwhelmed by dozens of menus, free gifts, and in-game currencies, none of which will mean anything to you at this point. But that's pretty standard for mobile games. Once you follow the prompts and click through all of that, you get to the actual gameplay. And there really isn't any. This is an idle RPG, which means that the game basically plays itself. You don't have to choose your characters or the targets for your attacks or anything. Neji and Asuna run around and fight without any input from you. And this is by far the most disappointing thing to me. Look, I'm not much of a gamer, and I've never really played an idle RPG other than a tiny bit of Cookie Run Kingdom, so I don't understand what the appeal is. If any of you enjoy them, then you'll probably like this fine. But I just think it's lame. Negima has such a great magic system. They could have given us a complex skill tree of spells that would upgrade as we level up, and have special interactions with the enemy spells. I understand that would obviously take a lot more time and effort to do, but as is, this really doesn't capture Negima's unique combat. Most of the time you can't even really tell what spells they're supposed to be using. It just looks like random flashes of light. Even the artwork that I was just giving so much praise doesn't really look that great in motion. For Negima's magic to really shine, I feel like it would have to be a turn-based RPG, like Pokemon or Persona, where you select specific attacks based on their power or effects that all get their time to shine in a short little animation. Although, that style of gameplay wouldn't really show off Negima's fluid, fast-paced choreography, but if you want to faithfully portray Negima's combat in real time, I feel like you would need an animation budget on par with Insomniac's Spider-Man. That's obviously a lot to ask, as this game clearly didn't have a huge budget, but then they should have just gone the turn-based route. They just bit off more than they could chew in my opinion. Oh, and this is a nitpick, but it's really weird to see multiple versions of the same character running around the screen at the same time. I know that has to be the case by virtue of the gacha system, but I still think it's a bit of a mess. The story isn't anything to write home about either. Negi, Asuna, and Kamo meet in the World Tree Plaza, where they have to fight a fake Takahata sensei. Then they get teleported to another world with a fake Mahora and fake versions of all the characters. I don't know, it was really vague. Mostly because all that exposition is thrown at you in about 30 seconds. The text is all automated and there's no option for you to pause or slow it down. So if you turn away for 1 second, you'll have no idea what's going on. That's probably the most unforgivable thing. I should make it clear that I have only played the very beginning of the game so far, so for all I know, the story gets way better as you get further into it. And I hope it does. But it has a very rough start. I don't want to sound too mean, because writing original stories is really hard. But Why did you need a new story in the first place? Just use the one from the manga. I don't think anyone would have complained if we just got a short plot summary and then were just dumped straight into the Kyoto arc. There's already a game that's just about exploring Library Island, and it seemed to work there. Why couldn't they have just done that? I know this review has been largely negative, but I really didn't want it to be. Like I said, the art is fantastic, and even more than that, it's just really cool that there's a Negima game at all. When was the last time you got a Negima anything? There's Yuki Holder, which is huge, but that came out over 10 years ago now. Negima isn't like Dragon Ball or Naruto, where we're never more than a few years away from another sequel or spin-off or a new movie. As Negima fans, we just kind of have to accept that there isn't that much content out there for us. I said earlier that there are 14 Negima video games, but that's nothing compared to a lot of other franchises, and they aren't exactly well known or easy to find either. As far as I know, this is the first Negima game that's readily available in English that you can play right now. I can't even begin to describe how insanely cool it is to be scrolling through YouTube and see an ad for Negima. That has literally never happened to me before. All the Negima content I've consumed I've had to hunt down myself, but this is the first time it's actually being shown to me in an ad. This could be the start of a new wave of Negima popularity, which is why, despite all the criticism I gave it, I'm going to continue playing Mahora Panic. It's not like it's hard to do. Like I said, the game basically plays itself. And the worst thing we can do as Negima fans is to totally ignore it. If they are trying to experiment with new Negima games, we have to show the powers that be that we're interested. Even if you don't care for Mahora Panic, the more people that play it, the more likely it is that we'll get a better game in the future. If you've listened to this review and thought that this sounds like an awful game, I want to encourage you to at least give it a chance. I'll put a link to it down below. It won't cost you anything, and it might lead to us finally getting some new Negima content. Negima content. That's all I have for you today, but I want to hear your thoughts. Have you played Mahora Panic? If so, what did you think of it? And are you going to keep playing? Do you think we could get more Negima games anytime soon? What would you even want from a Negima video game? Tell me all about it in the comments below. You keep being awesome, and I'll see you all next time.